one to avenge them. Me! I'm going to defeat you!
Hello there, Tenno, and welcome to some Warframe. If you are like me, you aren't watching this video. But if you're not like me, you are seeking some help in the beginning stages of Warframe. So today, my name is Arcader, by the way. Today, I'm out in the plains of Eidolon hanging out just for the purposes of, oh, hey, look, there's an Eidolon terror list, level 110. I guess we'll get into what the hell that means in this video, so stick around. We're gonna go over, alright, let's go over what we're gonna go over. We're gonna discuss in this video damage, how the damage in Warframe works. Shut the fuck up, Terry. Anyway, we're gonna go over modding and like the types of mods and what mods you should look out for and how to obtain them. We're gonna go over how your arsenal is set up as a Warframe player and what you should, worry about in terms of what you bring to any mission. We're gonna talk about the enemies and enemy types and how they are affected by the things you do and what they do to you and everything like that. And we're gonna talk about how your weapons work, how they're prioritized, what all of them can do, all the different things that I just hit Terry from. I did. Anyway, let's get back to my ship. We're gonna start this video. Alright, so let's make it clear right now. This video will contain possibly some light spoilers for the main progression of Warframe. This is my ship. If you have completed some of the story quests, maybe up to the War Within, ideally the new war would be very nice, but that's the latest thing to come out. If you've made it to the new war, I'm pretty sure you're no longer a brand new player, somebody who would absolutely need this video, but stick around. I'm sure there's still plenty of good information that you can learn from this video. So other than that, let's begin with how does Warframe work. Let's go into our codex here. So this is in everybody's ship. Everybody has this. The game never really tells you about it, but the main thing we need here is, where's damage? Right here. How does damage in Warframe work? So this will give you a shitty 5-page paragraph explanation of how shit sort of works a little bit, but this don't, okay? This sucks ass. It'll tell you the elements and like generally like, oh, you know what, fucking plus and minus 75%, shit like this. I mean, do you know how damage works in this game after reading all this? Like, look at this. It doesn't tell you what any of these are. It just says to get blast damage, heat plus cold. Alright, what is blast damage? God damn it. Well, let's go over that right now. Okay, so let's go to the Simulacrum to test some of these damage types. Okay, here we are in the Simulacrum. Welcome to the Simulacrum. This is pretty much like the training mode or the lab of Warframe, where you can go in, equip whatever weapons and anything you want, and then, spawn some enemies and test your damage or whatever you want in this safe room where you can control most of what happens. You'll unlock this by doing stuff for Cephalon Samaris in the relays. We will, that's for another video, but for the purposes of just showing you how damage in Warframe works, let's get started here. So this is how it works. You get into the Simulacrum and you're gonna learn a tutorial on how to scan stuff through the main beginning progression of Warframe. It's gonna tell you to like scan some shit to progress. Whenever you scan something, it's gonna show up here in the Simulacrum. I haven't by any means scanned everything in the whole game, but pretty much you just want to focus on scanning like the strongest things. Like for me, I usually test all of my damage against an Exogokstat officer because I know if I can kill this thing, I can kill anything else I'm going to be fighting. But other than that, let's just spawn some regular whatever enemies. So let's see. We have an Arid Butcher here. This is just a normal enemy you'll find on like Mars. Basic bitch boy enemy. So here's how it works. The first thing you need to understand is the enemy itself. So we have Grineer faction, we'll get into that later, but It gives you a little description on what it does. It hits you with some blades. It has critical damage, fucking whatever. Doesn't matter. We have the enemy's structure, what they're made of, and what you need to do to kill them. So this Arid Butcher has some ferrite armor. There's a couple of different types of armor, which all that means is the type of armor, like ferrite specifically, is weak to corrosive damage. So this 3 pluses means like plus 75% if it gets hit with a corrosive bullet, and we'll get into that in a second, but don't worry about it. The main takeaway is all of this is pretty much their strengths and weaknesses. It's like Pokemon cards, pretty much. The main thing really is don't worry about any of this. They have cloned flesh, 50 points at level 1, and this scales up with each level. So if I have like a level 5 enemy, this 50 and this 5 will go up. You know, it'll scale, but don't worry about any of that yet. The armor, the ferrite armor, affects the cloned flesh. It gives it some damage reduction. So the flesh is the thing that you have to reduce to 0 to kill the enemy. The armor is just a damage reduction that applies to this 50. And then, so let's just spawn one at level, like, 50 for now, like a nice mid, you know, progression enemy. Let's pause him. I just lost it. Awesome. Hold on. Bam. There he is, and he's paused. What I've got here in my hands is an unmodded Aklex Prime, just a basic little dual pistol weapon. I think any dual pistols you're gonna get are gonna be kind of comparable to this at this point. You know, a lot of weapons go through phases in Warframe where, like, you know, there's a lot of buffs and nerfs. The meta of the game changes quite often. These weapons in particular are quite average, quite, you know, not very notable. And with no mods, they're not going to be super strong. So let's see. What we have here is one enemy, one Warframe enemy. Fucking study him closely because he's going to show up a lot in the game. So we have the UI above them, obviously, the name, the Arid Butcher. He has a health bar, the orange bar right there. Orange means he has some armor. And as we just looked on the Simulacrum, he has 5 base armor. Up at level 50, it scales up. I don't know the exact numbers of, like, per level how it scales, but he has more than 5 armor because he's level 50. He also has that cloned flesh, which is like, it was strong to puncture, you know, whatever. Don't worry about any of that. Your damage is going to get so high that those base resistances aren't going to matter, like, ever. But he's level 50 right there, and there's going to be some more UI elements on different types of enemies, but this is the basic structure. You see an enemy, it's level 50, it's got armor because it's orange. If it doesn't have armor, it'll be red. Here, I can show you that real quick. Spoilers, by the way, spoilers. Alright, he no longer has armor, so he has a red health bar. That's what that means, which means he has no damage reduction on his health. If I hit him in the health, which is anywhere right now, that red will go down very quickly. That might even, yeah, that's respectable damage. So I'm doing 159 base damage. If I hit him in the head, it's times 3. So 478, you know, there's a little bit of damage variance per bullet. 319 if I crit like that. If we go into the upgrade screen and look at the stats of this gun, what do we have here? So accuracy is, you know, how often when you click on something will your bullet actually travel to that exact spot. It's kind of scales per weapon type, like 9.8 doesn't really actually mean anything. Some weapons will have like 100 accuracy, some will have like 20, and they're both the same. You know, don't worry about this. It's just a general, it might be kind of accurate. Fucking ammo maximum is the max amount of ammo. If I'm just spamming this all day, I spend 1 clip out of my 210, I reload, and the 210 goes down to 204. You know, eventually I'll run out unless I pick up ammo, which is on the ground and drops from enemies. Basic stuff. Let's go back in. We have the ammo pickup. Whenever I pick up an ammo container, I'll get 60 you know, ammo back into my full pool. Fire rate is how many times per second does this weapon cause damage. So if I were to spam click as fast as I could, this Aklex Prime would be hitting an enemy 2.67 times per second, so almost 3. The magazine is 16 bullets before I have to reload. The noise is alarming, and what this means is if I'm near 2 enemies that haven't seen me yet and I shoot one, the other one's gonna fucking hear that because it's alarming. We'll get into that later. Reload, 3 seconds to reload, which is really slow and really shitty. That sucks ass. I just showed you the reload animation. Let's get Reload speed, quick draw, a couple of reload speed mods. Now let's check this out. Oops, wrong gun. Let's reload that. Much better. It still is really slow, but it's much better. Reload speed is kind of important to me personally, but you know, your taste in weapons can differ from mine, and we'll, you know, as we learn what more weapons do, that'll become useful. Riven disposition. So don't, if you're any kind of new to this game, don't even worry about this. What this is there's a special type of mod we'll get into later called Riven mods, which are purple, and you have to complete a challenge with them equipped on a weapon to unlock them, and it'll show you a random weapon that it applies to. So say I had a Riven mod for this Acclex Prime specifically. It would have some random stats on it, and I can roll the stats like a slot machine, and it's gambling, and it's weird and dumb, and people don't like it. But the breakdown is Riven disposition means if I put an Acclex Riven on this Acclex Prime, it'll have 3 out of 5 pretty much like tiers of effectiveness. So let's say there's the regular Acclex weapon, and there's this Acclex Prime. The Acclex regular one will probably have a higher Riven disposition because it's not as strong a weapon as the Prime version. This is just a rule of thumb. There's plenty of exceptions to this, but that's what it means. Like if the Riven says plus 220% damage on the Acclex, it might say plus 200% on the Acclex Prime. But, you know, it's just random example. Numbers are all over the place. Don't worry about any of that. Trigger, semi, that's just how, you know, if you know anything about guns in the real world, semi, you click once and one bullet comes out. There's auto where you hold, click, and bullets come out continuously, etc. Here's the important shit. Damage. Alright, so on secondaries, and also primaries are largely the same, we have critical chance. So this weapon has a 25% critical chance. When you hit an enemy with a bullet, it rolls the dice, and there's a 25% chance right now that the white number that I hit an enemy with will instead be yellow. So in theory, if I hit this guy 4 times, one of them is going to be yellow. Oh, there's 1. There's 2. There's 3. That's actually, alright, my luck is incredible today. Yeah, that's what it looks like. So, the crit chance, 25%. Let's see, I have some mods for this. Let's equip some crit chance mods. This one's actually better than this one. Bam. I mean, I only have that one. I got it up to 75%. So now if I hit them 4 times, 3 of them should be critical. And they were already, so... Let's see if I can hit 4 crits. 1, 2, 3... Well, I probably would have if he didn't die. So yeah, that's pretty good. Crit's pretty good. You can easily get crit chance on like most weapons above 100%. And when it's above 100%, the yellow will turn orange if it procs crit like twice on the same dice roll. If it's above 100%, it'll turn orange. And then if you can get crit chance above 200%, then if it procs all 3 of those, you know, crit rolls, it'll turn red. And there's tiers above that. It stays at red, but it goes, you can get crit up to like tier fucking 17 on some weapons and shit. It's ridiculous. Don't worry about that much. Just try to get your crit to like 75% would be pretty good on most things. 100% usually is my baseline as an experienced player, but don't worry about any of that yet. Next, we have the crit multiplier. Pretty straightforward. When you hit a crit, it does this much more damage. So at base, 25% chance to just do double damage. As you saw when I put on that crit chance, that crit damage mod, that 2.0 turned into a 4.2 times. So there's a 75% chance that I just do 4.2 times as much damage for free whenever I hit a thing. That is separate from headshot. So if I were to hit an enemy in the head, that does a base 3 times multiplier. And then it rolls for crit after that. So headshots are pretty strong in this game right now. Next, we have status. So status chance is the same thing as crit chance, where there's a 25% chance on this weapon that whenever I hit the enemy with a bullet, it will proc a status. And what that means is one of my damage types listed right here below all this, impact, puncture, or slash, will proc its effect. Okay? So every damage type in the game has a proc effect when it hits an enemy. Impact will knock enemies over or down or away, depending on the strength of it. Puncture will kind of ignore like armor, but like it reduces their damage output by up to 75%, it says right there. This sucks. Don't worry about it. If an enemy can kill you, it's like puncture procs aren't going to save you. Don't worry about that. The good one of these three is slash. So slash procs the bleed effect, which just takes a percentage of the enemy's health based on how much damage you did to it in that first shot, and then it'll roll 8 ticks, like 1 tick per second over 8 seconds of percentile damage. So it ignores their armor, it ignores their shields, it just fucking eats away at them. So I have a 25% status chance on this weapon. Let's see if I can get that a little bit higher real quick. Status chance, this is plus slash. Okay, so here's what this means. I just put on a plus 90% slash mod. What that means is I'll get plus 90% to my base slash right here. And what that means, so my total damage only went up to 163. You'd think that isn't so great, but here's how it works, all right? So let's say I shoot the enemy and it procs status. A status proc has been made. It will then again roll the dice to see which of my damage types on this weapon will get the proc effect. So if I proc a status, I have 120 puncture and only 15 or 28 slash. There's a very high chance that it's going to roll the dice on puncture and I'll get puncture procs. If I have more slash, it'll only make my base damage go up some, but it'll make my slash chance much higher. So I know this is all very complicated, but it's pretty much just a ratio of, let's see if I can get a slash proc. No proc. Oh, there's a puncture proc. So he now does less damage. Oh boy, but he's not even moving, so whatever. There's another one. Yep, because my puncture is so high, I can only get puncture procs. Nah, no slash procs. Sag. But you get the idea. If I wanted to show you an example of what slash procs are like, let me get this fucking thing out real quick. This is what a slash proc does. It does that. Alright. Let's move on. So we've got our 3 damage types and our total. So the total is just like it's not like I'm not going to shoot the enemy and it does exactly 163. This is just the first number that the game takes into account when my bullet hits the enemy. There's so many more modifiers, like their, like I said, their flesh type and their armor. And, you know, my ratio of like, I have this slash damage, which does more to that flesh type and shit like that. And if I have elementals like corrosive and everything, this is just a base. You're not going to see an actual 163.5 pop out of the enemy when you shoot them. This is just a flat thing that the game uses for everything else. So let's get into a couple of mods here, some baseline mods. What I have here is Hornet Strike. You're going to start off with like a broken, shitty version of this, and eventually get a real one, and you can rank it up as high as you can. For most endgame players, for secondary specifically, this mod is not super like meta, but it's good to have. So plus 220% damage. What does that mean? So if we look at 163.5 up to 480, it's adding 220% to the total, and that's kind of, you know, spread between all of my damage types. So that doesn't really do anything for my status chance or what I'm going to proc. I still have the exact same ratio of puncture to slash. I'm going to be hitting puncture procs way more than slash in the exact same way. If I were to, let's see if I have some slash mods. Just Carnage Stinger. I have fucking unranked Maim, alright, and Razor Shot. There's some. I mean, this isn't going to change anything. But there's this mod called Hemorrhage, which will only work for impact. If I had a lot of impact, it would turn the impact into slash, but this is puncture, not impact. But don't worry about all that. So what can we glean from this? If I put on, let's say, a better weapon, like these Kuba Dubba Stubbas right here. Let's just, I don't have any, just empty this out. Don't worry about any of this. We'll get to this later. Let's have some status chance. So this weapon has 31% status chance, 23% critical chance. I think I would like to make it a status-based weapon. So if I type in status here, I'll get all my status things. Let's see, what damage types does it do? This thing does base heat damage. It has 7 points of heat. So some weapons are going to come with some elemental bonuses, and you know, some weapons won't. These 3, impact, puncture, slash, are the physical damage types. Everything else is elemental, all right? So it does a lot of slash. It's mostly slash, but it has, you know, about as much impact as well. So we could put on hemorrhage, which is only 35% chance, but that's 70 if the fire rate is below 2.5. Let's see. It is 10, so we're not going to use hemorrhage, because that's not useful. This is really only useful in like 3 weapons in the game. But don't worry about all these mods that I have. We're just using a lot of them for example. So let's see, I want a lot of status chance. So this gives me 80% status chance. So I'm at 55.8. Let's do some elemental mods. These are the ones you're going to want to get. These are called the 60-60 mods. They're 60% of an element and plus 60% status chance. These are all good. You want all of these. So now I do more heat on top of the base heat that I already did. Now let's say I want to put on toxin damage, but this weapon doesn't have any toxin, so plus 60% of 0 is 0, isn't it? Well, it adds toxin, and it has mixed with my heat, so it turns into gas, which sucks. Don't use gas, but doesn't matter for this purpose right now. Gives me that 60% status chance and adds toxin into my pool based on the total damage number here. And you can do that with all the other elements. So I have toxin plus electricity turns into viral, or corrosive even. I don't know why viral showed up there. So corrosive is very good against armor, which we showed earlier on with this arid butcher. Ferret armor, corrosive, 3 pluses right there. So that sounds pretty good. Let's try it. So I'm doing a little bit of corrosive damage and just regular impact, puncture, slash. And I procced corrosive, so that did some pretty good damage. And what corrosive does is it strips just a little bit of his armor off. So his health is still orange, but while that corrosive symbol is next to his name, his armor is a little bit lesser, and that stacks up to like 10 procs. And you pretty much will do more damage. Now I've procced slash and heat, so the slash is doing a little bit of damage over time, and the heat is actually both corrosive and slash, but lesser. Like it'll do a little bit of health-based damage, and it will strip a little bit of armor, but it's not good. It's not like the best at either of those things, but it does do 2 jobs, which makes it very useful. And there I just hit a crit on that heat proc, and you know, we do damage when we have statuses. So let's say I don't want to go into statuses. Let's use a crit weapon instead, like the Nell Prime here. So the Nell Prime, 114% crit chance, only 22% status chance. That sounds like a lot of damage. Bam, it is. So yeah, if we want to look at a very extreme example of crit damage and no status, this is an arcane called Exodia Contagion. This only goes on Zaz, which is a specific melee type that we will get into later. What it does is I can throw a projectile while I'm in the air, and that has 0% status chance. It actually does have like 2% status chance, but you're not going to be proccing status. What this is it has just crit. It just crits. So like, this is a very extreme example, but that's some shit. That's what critical damage does, as opposed to status. But as you can see from even let's even have a good status-based weapon like the Epitaph here. Status can also put in some work. Bam. And if that enemy had more health, that number would be bigger, but you get the idea. So both schools of thought, both status-based damage and crit-based damage are very useful. You're kind of looking at, what do you want this weapon in this slot to do, and what is that specific weapon good for? You know, look at its base stats. Like this thing has 31% base status chance, right? Something like that. Yeah, so like you could get it up to 100% status probably. You know, etc. Just find out what your weapon wants in terms of modding. So, in terms of modding, he says, let's go over the mod types finally. So over here back in my ship we have the mods section. You'll have installed this for the tutorial. And here we have my collection of mods. I have it sorted by rarity right now. Now these are a lot of weird looking mods that you've never seen before. Oh geez, look at all these. Let's go over this. All right, okay, mod types. Let's go all the way down. So first we have your common mods. These are brown, and they can be anywhere from 3 to 10 like ranks. Like this one's a 10, this one's a 5, this one's a 3, and it's flawed. The flawed mods you usually don't want to worry about. These are like fake versions that you get for the tutorial. And you're going to find the real version that doesn't have a crack on it later on, and that's the type you want to rank up. For the purposes of a tutorial, it's not going to be a huge waste of your overall time with Warframe to rank these up. But just know there's a real version of Magazine Warp, rather than this flawed one that you're going to want to worry about. Here it is right here. As you can see, like this one unranked is 3%, and the real one is 5%, and it's got 2 more ranks, so it's just a better version of the mod. So what do we do with these mods? We have these common ones that are brown, and they do all kinds of stuff, you know. Then we get into the silver ones, which are uncommon. There's also broken ones of these, and these ones, the main difference is that they just cost a little bit more endo up here to rank up. So after silver, obviously you have the gold ones, which are rare. I have a lot of silver ones. Jesus. All right, and then you have the rare mods. And in terms of like how actually rare these things are, like I haven't really ever noticed that a rare mod is any harder to get than a common mod. When you're out there looking for a specific like single mod that you need for a specific build, they're all kind of exactly as hard to obtain based on where they actually come from. The rarity of them just denotes how expensive they are to level up and nothing else. But after the rare mods, we get into the special type mods. There are a lot of rare mods. Hold on. After that, we have the primed mods. So there's all kinds of different primed mods. There's the umbral mods, the sacrificial mods, and the primed mods. And you know, there's a lot of these. You'll get these through a special weekly trader known as Barraketeer, which shows up every 2 weeks at one of the relays. The game will tell you when he shows up, and also if you have the Warframe companion app on your phone, it'll tell you when he shows up. If you're serious about playing Warframe, if you want to play this game for a long period of time, I'd recommend getting that app. It's actually quite useful for if you're not at your computer, you can claim stuff from the Foundry and everything like that. But also Warframe's coming to mobile soon, TM, so that might not even be a consideration later. But anyway, the prime mods usually come from Barraketeer. You'll also get a lot of them from daily login rewards. If you log in every day, you'll get like +1 step towards big milestones. And like every 100 of them or so, you'll get a choice of like a primed mod or like a riven mod or something like valuable just for logging in every day. But if you don't want to wait like, you know, 600 fucking days for a specific mod, you can buy them from other players, and then when you get your real one from logging in, you can just sell it back for the same amount you bought it for. I wouldn't really recommend doing all that. It's like if you're trying to trade with platinum to other players and everything like that, that's a whole different topic for a whole different video, but this is where these mods come from. These are the most expensive ones to rank up. If you get one that's completely unranked, like let's have this one and rank it all the way up. It's 40,000 endo and 1.9 million credits. That's ridiculous. It's okay to have mods at rank 5, like Prime Pack Leader or Smite Corpus, you know, like these Smite mods I don't really use too much personally. But, you know, I have pretty good ones. The only one you really need to be max rank is Prime Sure-Footed. This is the Prime mod. I would say this is the most important, like, Prime mod to have, because this removes a very annoying part of Warframe, which is you being knocked down. You can knock yourself down, enemies can knock you down, big ol' AoEs can knock you down, a lot of things can knock you down, and if you're knocked down, you're not attacking, you're not avoiding, you're not able to do anything, and you're just taking damage from enemies while you're lying flat on your ass. Being knocked down is a big, like, pervasive mechanic of Warframe, and this mod, canceling it out, it is 16 points, and it's an Exilus mod, so if you're gonna include it in like a full Warframe build, it's gonna take a lot of forma to get it to fit. but on a lot of really good Warframes, it is very worth it. But, you know, it's not by any means required. If you can just have the mental wherewithal to avoid knockdowns in general, you can definitely survive and do anything without PSF. But I would say this is a very, very big quality of life, very comfy mod to throw on any Warframe that doesn't already have some kind of knockdown resist built into their kit. But anyway, moving on from Prime mods, we then have Riven mods. So like I said, these are gambling. You can get them from all sorts of places. The main place to get a Riven mod is the Sortie, which is it's like a 3-mission, excursion. You do 3 missions in one day, and it resets every day at like 8 p.m. or whatever the reset is. Might be like noon or something. And you have a small chance to get a Riven mod from it. And you do them, every day. Over like a couple of weeks, you'll get a bunch of Riven mods usually. They can be for a rifle, a shotgun, a pistol, a kit gun, a melee, all kinds of different weapon types. And it'll have a challenge on it like this: find 12 syndicate medallions. This challenge sucks ass, but once you do the challenge, you equip the mod onto that weapon type. You do the challenge, and it'll open up and tell you what specific weapon it is for. So, like right here, for example, I opened up a Riven for a Kuva Brahma, which was very lucky when I opened this, but they nerfed the shit out of the Kuva Brahma, and this mod is actually quite useless now. But I keep it for solidarity. Maybe they fix it one day. So here's what a Riven mod is. They're very fucking expensive. This one is 18 points. It'll have a random name like Krita, Gelatox. Don't worry about all that. It'll just have some stats on it. Like this one gives me plus Toxin, plus Cold, plus Crit Chance, and minus damage to Corpus. This is actually a pretty good Riven mod because the Corpus don't have too much survivability in comparison to like the Grenier, for example, and we'll get into that in a minute too. But anyway, that's the gist. Like Riven mods, they're cheating. Like no weapon needs Riven mods, obviously, unless you're completely insane and you're doing endurance levels all the way up to fucking level cap when enemies are level 10,000. And like you definitely need that extra fucking crit chance or something, but that is not what this video is about. Don't worry about any of these pretty much. Next we have the Amalgam mods and the Riven mods and the Amalgam mods and the Galvanized mods. All these mods are the same price after the Prime mods. These are all the same to like level up to full, so in terms of like credits and endo. So the Amalgam mods are also for specific weapons like Rivens, but they have like locked in stats. Like all Amalgam shotgun barrages are this, and you can also get these from specific places. Like there's a boss that drops all these mods. After that, there's the Galvanized mods, which come from Arbitration, which is a mission type that you unlock after you complete every single node in the star chart. And there's a lot of those, but it is worth it. These mods are very strong, and you use them on most weapons these days. After this, these are Requiem mods, and you don't level these up at all. The dots on the bottom of them are actually how many times you're allowed to use them. So like you can use each one 3 times, and then it breaks. So what these are is they're for hunting Liches and Sisters of Parvos, and that's a whole kind of like Kingpin system, like a Nemesis system that we don't need to go into right now. They're how you get like the Kuva weapons and the Tenet weapons and shit like that. Kind of like for the purposes of this video, that's advanced shit. Don't worry about any of that. And after that, we have the Archon mods. These are the newest, biggest mods in the game. There's only 2 good ones: Archon Vitality and Archon Stretch. You get them from something called the Call missions, or the weekly. They're called the Call missions, which is technically spoilers for what they actually are. But there's a character named Call, and you do missions with him. Oh shit! Oh shit! What a thing to catch in this video. I just randomly walked back here. This is a hey kiddo. That's gonna scare you once or twice throughout your time playing Warframe. After you complete a specific mission called the Chains of Hera, that's just gonna start happening. That was completely unplanned and not supposed to be in this video, but that actually did scare me a little bit. Anyway, we've gone over some mod types. Let's now head over to our arsenal and learn what to do with them. Alright, so welcome to your arsenal, Tenno. We have an infested outbreak in Valifor, and Nama, don't worry about it. We have a Warframe slot, we have a primary slot, a secondary slot, and a melee slot. All this other shit, don't worry about it yet. The Parazon you're gonna have 2, but this is just like for hacking. You have 3 kind of bonus mods on here. Don't worry about that yet. That doesn't really do anything until much later. But let's start with the Warframes. So I have a video, I actually have several videos, tier list videos on like what Warframes are good and what Warframes are bad. When you're starting out as a brand new player and you're learning about what all the Warframes do, don't worry about any of that. Just choose whichever one you think looks cool, or whichever one you know what it does, or if somebody told you, oh, you want to do this mission type, this is the best Warframe for that, you know. For example, you know, if you want to use Wisp for anything, Wisp is one of the best Warframes in the game. Go get yourself a Wisp. You can get Warframes through story quests. You can get them through boss fights, drop their parts. A lot of them you can just buy from like the dojo, from clans. All kinds of Warframes come from all different kinds of places, and just use the one you like, man. Most people will start with either Excalibur or Mag or Volt, and they're all pretty good now. And you can't go wrong until later when you start being able to go wrong in harder missions. So let's hit the upgrade button. So you have 3, every Warframe starts with 3 slots you can just do whatever with. You're mostly going to be focusing on 1 until much later when you start experimenting, when it's like, oh, I want to build for his 2 or his 4. So this is what a Warframe build looks like. We have the Aura mod, which will give you bonus points rather than cost points. Steel Charge is the only one that gives 14 or 7 or 9. It's the only one with 9 base points that gets doubled to 18 when you put it on the correct polarity. Then we have, you know, the Exilus mod slot, this is pretty much the slot reserved for mods that don't actually affect your stats, but they do auxiliary kind of shit like bullet jump and aim glide stuff. You know, just throw that on there if you have the extra points. But here we have the regular slot. So each slot will either be just blank like this, or they'll have, see how these numbers are green? That means they're cut in half because they're on the correct polarity. If I switch these 2 mods, I can't, because this Prime Continuity actually costs 14. It should be like 15 or 16, but mine's only rank 9 and not rank 10. So it costs 7, and if I were to move it over here, it would cost 14. And this flow, not being a check mark polarity, would cost like plus 50%. It would cost like also 14 or something if I put it on that slot. So how do you change these polarities? Well, you can hit the actions button down here. If you have anything called a forma, you can use a forma and install one on a slot and give it a new polarity based on what mod you plan to put in there. After you do that, your Warframe or weapon or whatever you're formatting will reset to rank 0, and you'll have to level it up again, but you keep its abilities, so you're allowed to use its abilities as soon as you unlock them forever. But you level it up again, and then you'll have more points because one mod will have its cost cut in half. And you do that as many times until you get every mod slot filled and you have a full build like this. So that's how you do that. And in terms of the specific mods, that's again for another video. But that's your Warframe slot, and basically the breakdown is you want to look at your Warframe, what are its abilities, and what is it for, and you know, what missions could I bring this Warframe to that it would help with, you know. Your baseline, you want every Warframe to be able to survive. So like on this Excalibur, I have Umbral Fiber, just because it's an Excalibur Umbra, so it comes with the 3 Umbra polarities, so there's no point in changing those, and just equip these 3 mods and it's fine. I have Umbral Fiber and Umbral Vitality for survivability. I also have Adaptation, a very useful mod you can get from arbitrations, just like the Galvanized mods. And this is pretty much like, if you know what the sentients are in this game, the sentients kind of do the same thing, where if you get hit with something, you are now 10% more resistant to it, up to 90%, which can get pretty useful later on in the game. But, you know, this is all advanced shit I'm going over again. After your Warframe, if it can survive and then it does something else, you are good. And by something else, I mean, does it buff your weapons? Does it buff your teammates? Does it keep your teammates alive or do something for them? Does it increase your speed? Does it debuff enemies, or does it slow enemies, CC enemies, or does it just straight up do damage to the enemies that is comparable to your weapons? That's the kind of stuff you want your Warframe to be doing, in addition to it just being able to stand there and not explode in the face of these enemies. So that's what this slot is for, and you know, that's always what you want to do. These other 3 slots are a little bit more flexible. So we have the primary slot, the secondary slot, and the melee slot. So your primaries these days in Warframe are usually going to be your big damage dealers, which you're going to be focusing on for stuff like Galvanized Hell, which is a shotgun mod that gives you a lot of multi-shot, and multi-shot is a complicated stat that pretty much means it's pretty much just a chance that your weapon will shoot 2 complete shots in one every time you click. That's not exactly what it does, but for the purposes of a new player, just understand that more multi-shot means more shots per click, and that's really, really good, and it's a lot better than fire rate for your understanding. But that's, again, you know, advanced shit. Let's go find like a more normal looking weapon like the Nagantaka Prime. This is a normal kind of rifle weapon, does a lot of status damage, has a lot of slash weighting, very, very good weapon, and also pretty decent critical chance. This is one of the few weapons where internal bleeding is actually like a consideration. This isn't like the optimal build by any means, but it's just one that kind of works for general use. So your primary slot is for the big damage, if you want to do crit or status, or just, you know, whatever kills the enemies. This is the primary is what's going to do it. To support the primary weapon, either you want your Warframe to do something that gives you a lot of primary damage somehow, you know, or debuffs the enemies so the primary can kill them, or you want your secondary to do something as well. So let's say this Nagantaka Prime does viral damage. Okay, viral's good against health, right? But what if the enemy has a lot of shields, like the Corpus, for example? Well, you could equip a weapon that does good damage against shields. So if I take my Kuva and I put not radiation gas, I don't want to change this actually, but for the purposes of this video, let's find like the Cyanoid Gamma Core. I have an empty, yeah, let's do this. So this does base magnetic damage. Magnetic damage is very effective against shields, and it decreases shields in the same way that viral decreases armor or health, or like damage to, yeah, don't worry about the specifics. Magnetic good against Corpus is the point. So we got the Cyanoid Gamma Core here. So you want your secondary to fill in a weakness that the Nagantaka might have. I mean, it doesn't. But let's say this is like a status-based weapon, and some enemies in the mission are immune to status or are very resistant to status. You might want to bring a crit-based weapon in that case. Like the Simulacrum is very crit-based. It's got 90% fucking crit chance and a lot of critical multiplier, and does a lot of slash and viral. You know, this is a very good weapon. You know, or the reverse. If you bring a very a very crit-based weapon, like not this. A very crit-based weapon like the Cernos Prime. You might want to bring a status-based weapon like the Epitaph. There's one more consideration in addition to all this. Let's say you have a weapon that just wants to do a lot of base damage. The weapon you're going to use to kill enemies, like for example, where is it? Right here, the Fenmore. This weapon just does a lot of fucking base damage. So here's the thing that secondaries are usually used for in the meta of Warframe. There's something called priming, or status priming. And what that is this specific build on this Epitaph, 1201 base or total base damage, right? That isn't a lot for this weapon. If I switch to this weapon build, this is actually less damage, but it has a lot more like status or crit weighting. The point is, priming is the concept that if you put status procs on an enemy, and this weapon does that, it has 180% status, so every time I shoot something, it's gonna get procced with like slash or heat or viral or something. When an enemy has these procs on them, the next shot you shoot after, as long as these procs are still on them, is, you know, affected by them. So viral specifically will increase damage to health. So if an enemy has 10 viral procs on them, they will take, I think it's like ×3 damage to their health no matter what. So I use the epitaph, shoot the enemy, get some viral procs on it, and then I shoot it with the Fenmore, and the Fenmore does 3 times damage. That's your basic what priming is for. This totally doesn't matter, and most weapons will be able to kill enemies regardless of priming up until like insane levels. But if you're fighting anything that you are not confident you can just fucking kill no problem, you might want to try priming. And you don't have to use the epitaph. The epitaph is like the best weapon for it, but any weapon that has a considerable amount of status chance, like let's see, the Axolotl Prime at base status 30%. Yeah, that's not bad. Let's build this for priming real quick. So we want like a lot of slash would be nice. Well, slash isn't really for priming. Slash will kill things, but you want like viral. So let's do viral. So viral is toxin cold, right? And then we can have like heat for reducing their armor a little bit. And sure shot is just base status chance. Actually, you want to get galvanized shot if you have it. Now I have 100% status chance and it's doing heat viral. So whenever I shoot somebody with this, they're going to get a lot of heat and viral procs, reducing their armor and their health. And then the Fenmore again will do 3 times fucking damage and ignore some of their armor because of the heat procs. And it's just, you know, that's how it works. So if ever there's an enemy that you can't kill, try that. Otherwise, let's move on to the melee slot. So the melee slot is unlimited ammo, obviously, because it's a stick that you swing instead of bullets that you shoot. And they are kind of completely different than guns, I mean, obviously. So this is a Zaw, so it's actually quite a special type of melee weapon. Let's go to a more normal kind of melee weapon, like the Aurum Infinitum. These are a Cronin Prime. I renamed them something Latin because it sounds cool. But this is pretty much like your most basic, fundamental, normal melee weapon with a very basic, fundamental, normal melee build. So the main mods that you're going to want for every melee weapon, I would suggest you go out and find these as soon as possible. You can look on the wiki for where they come from, or you know, buy them with platinum if you have platinum. If you're a free to play player, don't worry, you can get everything by just going and getting it yourself instead of buying it. But the main things you want for a melee weapon is reach, and there is a primed reach that comes from Barrow or logins, I can't remember which, but eventually you'll get a prime reach. You want prime reach or reach. That's very useful for early on weapons. You know, later on range becomes less important as attack speed becomes the thing, but that's, you know, again, that's super high level stuff that you don't have to worry about. Another very important mod, Blood Rush. This pretty much makes every single melee weapon 100% crit chance no matter what, as long as you're using light attacks, and light attacks are, you know, a lot of melee weapons will do that. Another very important one, Condition Overload. If your melee weapon is status based, this is like the antithesis of Blood Rush. You know, the best melee weapons will use both because they have both good status and crit chance, but Condition Overload pretty much is just like a lot more damage because the enemy is status procced. And that's good, right? Work and Shatter, I think most people are going to just have this. It's a pretty common mod. Crit damage, good. Whenever you crit, you do even more damage. Other than that, like Prime Pressure Point, there's a regular Pressure Point. Prime Pressure Point, pretty sure comes from Barrow. Useful to have, you know. Prime Fury for the attack speed if you need attack speed on a very slow weapon or something. And then you have the heavy attack mods, like Killing Blow is good for a weapon that does heavy attacks. Let's switch to a weapon that does heavy attacks really, really good. Like the Reaper Prime, for example, is one of my favorites. People are leaving. Here we go. So I named my Reaper Prime Mary UM. That's a Hunter x Hunter reference. Thank you. So this is like more of a heavy attack build. You want like Organ Shatter for the crit damage because heavy attacks are pretty much only crit based. There are like heavy attacks that force slash, like this one specifically. So it'll be still good to have crit or a status chance on some, for if you want to do like a hybrid build where you're like, sometimes I want a light attack or light attack to build combo and then heavy attack to get rid of it. And you have Killing Blow, like I said, is just heavy attack damage, and you have Sacrificial Steel or whatever your crit chance mod is will work. You want your, you know, your 60/60s, your elementals. Corrupt Charge is specifically for heavy attack only builds. This just makes it so you have ×2 combo at all times. instead of having to build it up with light attacks. So it'll be easier to just spam heavy attacks that way. And then reach is very good for heavy attacks because then you're heavy attacking more enemies. But on melee weapons specifically, let's go over this. There's a stat called follow through. And what that means is the 0.6 is how much damage an enemy will take if another enemy has already been hit in the same swing. So let's say I swing my melee weapon in front of me and it hits two enemies. The first enemy will take 100% damage. The second enemy will take 60% damage. And that is per weapon. There are some weapons that have a better follow through stat. Like maybe Lieutenant Livius is different. This one has a 0.7. So the second enemy will take 70%. And the third enemy will take like, you know, another 70% of that. Like, I don't know, 53%. And then the next one's like, you know, 30 something, etc. You know? So you want to pay attention. If you're modding for range, you want to make sure your follow through stat is pretty okay. Like let's say the Inodem is one of my favorite melee weapons. God damn it, I'll just fucking type it in. I can never find this thing. The Inodem has 0.9 follow through, so the second enemy will take 90% damage, which is still pretty good, and etc. You can hit like 6 enemies with this and kill all of them. Yeah, that's got really good follow through. The Inodem is one of the best melee weapons right now. But let's go back to like our normal looking weapon, like the Aurum Infinitum. Let's go back into the Simulacrum and I'll kind of show you how stances work, because stances are very complicated. Okay, so what I've done here is I've spawned one of kind of the most iconic or most like problem enemy from each of the main 5 factions of Warframe. There are a few more, like there are a few like spin-off factions, but the main 5 factions of Warframe are the Grenier, which is this heavy gunner. There's the Corpus, which is this Corpus Tech. There's the Infested, which is like this Charger. There's the Corrupted, like this Bombard. And there's the Sentients, like this Battlist. So here's the breakdown of what they are. The Grenier, the main thing you're going to want to worry about is how tanky they are. Their health bars being orange, armor is very, very poignant, very pungent, very effective, very efficient in this game. It's flat damage reduction on everything you do. Armor is a problem for you, and most Warframes can't take advantage of armor like all enemies can. So the Grenier are the prime example of this, and they have a lot of it. We'll get into how to deal with it a little bit later. But next we have the Corpus. So the Corpus, instead of armor, they'll usually have shields. There are definitely some Corpus that have armor too, but for the most part, all the Corpus you're going to be seeing are going to have some shields instead of armor. And the only difference is shields will, you know, shield you from your health. Like the Warframes have health and shields as well. So they're kind of the same. I've been talking a lot. I'm going to die. But anyway, shields, you cannot hit an enemy's health until their shields are depleted, unless you use a specific damage type called Toxin. But for the most part, you want to get rid of their shields first. And again, we will get rid of those, tell you how to deal with that in a moment. Next we have the Infested. They usually don't have any shields or armor, but again, there are definitely exceptions. There definitely are Infested that have armor and Infested that have shields. But their whole advantage is that they have the numbers. There are a lot of Infested, and they put down a lot of AoE, like CC, like goop on the ground that'll slow you down, damage you, and they do a lot of toxin damage, which goes past your shields and hits your health, which is very bad for you. So the Corpus and the Infested, kind of their whole shtick as a faction is doing damage to you and doing a lot of damage. The Grenier generally don't do as much damage, but again, they're like a million times tankier. So each faction has their own thing to watch out for. Next, the Corrupted. The Corrupted are actually a combination of all 3 of those factions, those first factions. You're going to find this Corrupted Bombard is actually a Grenier enemy that has been corrupted by the Void, and that makes it a Corrupted faction enemy. There's Bombards, there's Heavy Gunners, there's Corrupted Infested enemies, there's Corrupted Corpus enemies, and you know, it's kind of like the amalgam faction. There's one more thing with the Corpus that I didn't actually spawn, called a Nullifier. And a Nullifier will have a big bubble around it. Let's see if I can actually spawn one right now. Hold on. Like like a corrupted one, for example. There he is. So yeah, nullifier will grow a circle around it once it spawns, and it has a little drone. You can either shoot the bubble several times to get rid of it, or you can shoot the drone until the drone dies. And this drone is very high level, so it has a lot of health. Hold on. Oh wow, there we go. If you have a better weapon for this, if you shoot the drone, it'll instantly get rid of the bubble, and it'll come back after a few seconds. But if you walk into this bubble after it respawns, let's say I have an ability active like this. This is Gloom. This is a very good ability. Your Excalibur won't have this ability. We'll get into that in a little bit. But let's say I have an ability active, and I can just reset this nullifier and get him to respawn his bubble. If I walk into it, it nullifies my abilities in this, and I cannot reactivate my abilities either. So very bad. You want to not be in this bubble. So once you get rid of it, you want to kill the enemy, obviously, and then that's no longer a problem. So nullifiers are kind of the main thing that the Corpus and the Corrupted have against you, in terms of if your abilities are just so overwhelmingly strong that enemies can't do anything to you, nullification will definitely still hurt. So let's get rid of you and reset here. And what the hell? He's still there. What? Hold on. Stop. And then get rid of you. There. Alright. Next, let's talk about, the sentients. So the sentients they have armor, like the Grineer, and some of them have shields too. Again, you know, there's always exceptions. But their main thing is that they adapt to damage. Remember that mod I told you about earlier, adaptation? Where if you get hit by something, you now take less damage from it. So the more I hit this same enemy with the same weapon, the less each shot is going to do to them. Although I do a lot of status, so it doesn't matter.
Surprise them with something new.
So, but like if I pulled out a different weapon, it was doing 32. My status is actually going through their adaptation because it's a relatively weak enemy for how well my weapons are modded. But the idea is that you want to have a weapon specifically for the sentients in a mission that can like one-shot them versus any other enemy. And the sentients you're not even going to see too terribly often. It's mostly like Grineer, Corpus are the main two. But that's one faction to worry about. So let's kill these guys. There you go. Slash damage, am I right, boys? Okay. So now we're gonna go over how to get rid of these things. So there's a priority list of things you want to do to an enemy in order to kill it. The main thing, obviously, is kill the enemy. If you can do that, if you can just shoot it and is dead, then do that. Good job, you've killed the enemy. If you can't do that, for example, oh man, that did like nothing to him. It actually did quite a lot because of that slash and heat proc, but it didn't kill him, that's for sure. There is another step. We could prime the enemy. Actually, it's the wrong weapon for this. Let's get a priming weapon out. Like I said earlier on, I was talking about priming. The Epitaph is great for priming an enemy. The Epitaph shoots a big old fucking circle, and any enemy that gets hit by that will get hit by all the status procs that the Epitaph does. I'm trying to only hit him, but yeah, see how he has got some cold procs, some blast procs, some viral procs, some heat procs. All of those will affect his health when I hit him with anything else. So I prime him once and then I shoot him, and the base number on that was a lot bigger, but I didn't do the proc. So that one procced heat, or viral, or heat, yeah, heat, and it did a lot more damage per tick. This is classified as a special enemy or a heavy unit. So he has like that yellow choke point. That was actually the impact proc that did that to him. That allows me to do like a visceral attack on him. Let's see if I can do it to this guy. No, maybe this one. I guess not. Anyways, when an enemy kind of flashes with that red thing above their head, that means you can do like a finisher, like a visceral attack on them, and that's pretty cool. And it just instantly kills the enemy, which is useful sometimes for like your Parazon will proc like energy ores, but don't worry about it. I keep talking about advanced shit when I shouldn't be. Right here, he has it again. He's got like that choke point on his health bar. When his health goes below that, he'll be open to that finisher. So anyway, like I said, priming. If I prime him a couple times, now I do, look at that. One shot, literally one shot because of the status effects. That's the power of priming, whereas before I could only do, you know, like a tenth of his health in one bullet. So otherwise, let's see. I could go through their defenses with toxin damage or a slash proc, like so. Slash is really good against Corpus, obviously, because they don't have anything above their shields to protect them, and slash just does percentile health damage. That's really good. But there's another thing you can do after priming, or even before priming at any point. Remember how I said this enemy's orange health bar means they have armor. This enemy's blue means they have shields. This enemy is a sentient, so it has adaptation. There's something called armor stripping, or it's really like defense stripping, but armor stripping is usually the term because armor is the most common thing. Armor stripping or defense stripping is something that a lot of Warframe abilities have. Not a lot, but like many Warframe abilities have armor stripping. Let's go to like a relatively bad example. Let's pick out like Frost. Alright, so Frost is a Warframe, and he is by no means a great Warframe right now, but he does have Avalanche, which is big range and high armor reduction. See how in that stat screen it says armor reduction 101%. So you want to, if you're building Frost for some reason, get enough strength. I have 169, which is very nice. Get enough strength to get this armor reduction to 101%. And then you pretty much just want to have all range so that you can use that on enemies. So what this means is when this enemy gets hit by my 4, it will have 101% of its armor taken off permanently. And it only has 100%, so 101% is just overkill. But his orange health bar will turn red. And there you go. It does a little bit of like cold damage, but that's not important. So you saw earlier when I hit it in the head with that heat proc how much damage one bullet did. Without any armor, I do this. And that's before procs. That's like somebody did the actual calculation a few weeks ago. It's like 32x base damage if an enemy has 100% armor versus 0 armor. Pretty fucked up. Pretty ridiculous. And this enemy also has armor, so she's the same. Bam. As a little slash proc, I can like, yeah, there you go. And the, you know, Battlist lost armor too. And this didn't have armor in the first place. And this Frost 4 doesn't work against shields. It's only armor, but it did do like damage to the shields. But either way, Corpus aren't known for their tankiness unless they do have armor. So yeah, armor is very, very cumbersome. You want to get rid of that shit. Now, I'm going to take you to one of my strongest frames. This is Rhino Prime. I'm going to tell you right now, this is a little bit spoilers, but I have on my operator, I have a special ability. This is called Caustic Strike. This is a complete 100% defense removal for free. You'll get this later on in the game. Kind of a little bit spoiler materials abound, but very useful to know. Rhino, the Warframe, okay? Rhino has this ability called Roar. What Roar does is, see up in the top right, I have 170% bonus damage. Now this is known as faction damage, which is different than base damage in that it's just a stronger multiplier. That's again more advanced shit. Don't worry about it right now. But basically, I do a lot more damage than normal because of Roar, right? Simple stuff, you can understand that. Damage buff to all of my weapons. Very, very good. Even this epitaph that is used for priming can still kill an enemy, right? Once in a while, like even if I prime you and they hit you with the alt fire, bam. That's pretty respectable. Yeah, if this was actually built for its damage build, like this would do a lot of damage. Even against the sentient, if I prime you up a little bit. Roar's run out by now, but bam, what if I roar and then yeah, oh yeah, see that? So Roar's pretty good. Let's see. I'm gonna spawn these enemies. So Roar is on 183%. If I hit you in the head, bam. That's great. One shot the enemy in 3 ticks. Okay, great. But I'm gonna show you something useful. Let's wait for Roar to run out. It has now run out. Respawn. So this is instead of Roar. We don't have Roar on. We're gonna instead strip armor. If I hit the slash proc. Point is, stripping armor. Oops, that's Iron Skin. Hold on. Point is, what I'm trying to say is stripping armor results in a much higher damage output to the enemy that has its armor stripped than any sane amount of damage buffing from a Warframe ability can give you. Ideally, you want both. Like with this setup, I have Rhino and I have Caustic Strike. I have both, and that's a lot of fucking damage. Like I have Roar on right now, plus this thing's armor stripped. That's a lot of damage. But if you can have one or the other, armor stripping or defense stripping, even on this Corpus, like I can strip its shields with Caustic Strike if I hit it. I can't hit it from here, but like it's very useful to have armor stripping over damage buff, but damage buff is very useful too, right? All I'm trying to say is like the faction damage, let's say on the base damage, Roar right now is like, let's say it's like times fucking 5-6 times damage. That's a fuck ton, but it's not times 30, which is what full armor reduction is on the Grineer. Any enemy that you need to kill probably has armor or some kind of attenuation like that, where armor stripping is going to be much more useful. The Roar or any Warframe based damage ability is going to be useful for things that you can't armor strip. And let's see, if I have like a Juggernaut, you can armor strip this, but it is for the purposes of this example. Let's say I can't armor strip this, the Roar damage is then going to become very useful. If I Incarnon this guy up, Roar. This is a bad example because it's not, he's actually paused, he's not going to open up his weak point. But anyway, my point is, armor stripping is much more of a damage multiplier than any normal damage multiplier. So, we have to kill an enemy, you can armor strip or defense strip them. Then you want to buff your damage. Then you want to prime the enemy with an epitaph or other, you know, you want to hit them with a lot of status procs. And then you want to find something like your primary weapon to do that big damage. There's I can probably show a better example than the Fenmore. Let's have like my Ceranos Prime. This does have a Riven on it, but don't worry about that. The point is this does a lot of like base damage plus crit damage, like is a critical focused weapon, right? So let's see what I can do to this Exogok stat. If I hit it in the head with a full shot right at point blank, bam. That's pretty good. It procced slash, so in 8 ticks that'll probably one-shot. Pretty good. That's with the Riven. Don't expect the same results, but that's not the point here. If I respawn you real quick, and then we prime it with the epitaph. 1, 2, 3, and then we shoot it before the status is run. Oh yeah, there you go. Don't need to wait for slash. It just fucking dies. You know, so you want to go through those steps. If an enemy is not being killed by your weapon's base anyway, you want to A, armor strip, B, buff your damage with Roar, C, prime it, and then D, if you can't kill it then you're doing something wrong. If you've done all 3 of those steps. Let's do all 3 of those fucking steps. That would actually be ridiculous. So I've got Roar on. I'm gonna armor strip it, pull out my epitaph, 1, 2, 3, and bam. Like if something survives that, you're definitely not playing the game correctly. Definitely. So that's how you do that. And let's go into one more side note before I leave you here. There are special melee types called glaives, the throwing glaives I mentioned earlier. The glaive prime is almost unequivocally kind of the best melee weapon in the game. I don't want to say the best weapon, but it's definitely the best melee weapon. This is kind of the build. You don't have to have the exact build if you're just coming up in the world. But let's get rid of all these for now. Like I said, the Exogok stat officer is kind of my baseline, what I use. Actually, everything should die so I can spawn 20 of these. 20 of these, max level I'm allowed to spawn in here. This is no armor stripping, no priming. This is what the Glaive Prime does. It's a lot of slash damage. She's already dead. They're already dead. Yeah, so the Glaive Prime, big AoE slash damage. One more consideration you want to take into account when you're killing a lot of enemies is this Ceranos Prime is like one target, maybe like 2 or 3 if they're lined up in a nice little row, which usually is not the case. The Glaive is the whole room. Everything gets hit by the Glaive. Everything gets forced to have slash procs. Imagine if I primed the enemy, roared, and then hit it with the Glaive. She even died before I can even get to her, but the Glaive... You want a Glaive. You are gifted a Glaive called the... you know what? I don't even remember what the fuck it's called. Hold on. You're gifted the Zorus for a story quest kind of early on in the game. This doesn't force slash like the Glaive Prime, but this weapon, until you can get a Glaive Prime, is really gonna be most people's best friend. It does kind of the same thing. Doesn't force the slash, but like, these high numbers, I mean, these enemies are way too tanky for it, but this is an excellent primer. I can like shoot my Ceranos and then, oh yeah. Yep, you're dead. The Zorus is kind of like the poor man's Glaive Prime. Anyway, that's my kind of my parting tip to you. Get yourself a fucking Zorus, and then as soon as you can, find yourself a set for the Glaive Prime, get a fucking Glaive Prime. Bam. So anyway, that's basically all the fundamentals of Warframe combat in a mission. You know, I could make more videos on the specifics of like per mission type, or like how do you synergize a Warframe. Like obviously Rhino synergizes with his weapons at all times because of Roar, but like what about other Warframes that do more complicated shit? I could do more videos on specific like movement techniques and you know, more niche stuff, fucking etc. Anyways, leave a comment on any more questions you have, etc. I am Zarkator. Thank you for watching. This video is like really fucking long, but it's worth it, I promise. New players, get out there, get collecting your mods, your weapons, and you'll be able to do some shit like this someday. I promise. I love you. Alright, anyway, okay, bye. See you out on the star chart, Tenno.